What's up, everybody? Ironblade64 here. Today, I'm gonna start telling you guys a little story. About 2 years ago, I went to this place called Philmont. It's a scout camp in New Mexico. I went there with my scout troop, and I hiked there for a little over a week, about 12 days in total. And during that entire time, I kept a journal of everything that happened there. That was significant to me. I actually started writing in the journal on, quote, day 1, which I call it day 1, but it's really more like day 0, because I started the journal before we actually got there. But I'm just going to call it day 1, nonetheless. I'm going to be reading each day of the journal in a separate video. I'll have it right in front of me. This is the journal that I took. Day 1, June 11th, 2023. I started the day not wanting to wake up, savoring every moment before my scout troop's long-awaited trip to Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. Being a 2-week trip to an unfamiliar land so far from home, admittedly, scared me. As of writing this, I'm still unsure of what to think. Something inside me wanted very much to stay home, where everything was familiar and I had nothing to worry about. My dad and I said our goodbyes to my mom and sister as they left for church. After waiting for a couple hours, my dad and I started playing Mario Kart 64 to pass the time. We enjoyed a few versus rounds before I was left to play alone. After failing to get in the top 4 on the first race of the Special Cup, I tried again and placed decently in all 4 races, pulling off a down-to-the-wire edging ahead of Bowser's, securing my first-place victory on Rainbow Road. After turning the console off, we finished packing our bags into our Tahoe, except we had to make 2 return trips. One for my retainers, and another for our hiking poles. Guess we couldn't get away that easily. We then ventured to the church in town, joking along the way, while our troop assembled in the parking lot. After some last-minute luggage checking and some light rain, we took a troop picture and started our journey to Galesburg, Illinois, where we would catch an Amtrak train to Raton, New Mexico. It was a simple enough concept. Editing Ironblade here, I've decided to mute the part where I talk about which interstates we took to get to Galesburg because that would reveal too much about where I live. We did encounter some traffic and crazy drivers, and a couple of times I should have informed my dad sooner where the exit was. But after a McDonald's stop in eastern Illinois, a rest stop, and many miles of interstate later, we made it to Galesburg. One thing to note, it startled me how quickly Peoria seemed to appear out of nowhere, and the presence of a very high-up overpass also surprised me. We were some of the first of our troop to arrive at Galesburg. When everyone arrived, we walked around the station and I got a picture of a statue of Abraham Lincoln. I got a picture with a statue of Abraham Lincoln. After a while of roaming outside the station, we went across the street and ate at Jimmy's Pizza. There were records all over the walls, and the pizza menus were records too. There were 5 kinds of pizza: pepperoni, meat lovers, sausage, hamburger, and taco. They were all delicious. I mean, it's pizza. I drank 2 glasses of Mountain Dew and a Pepsi. We watched some episodes of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show that David downloaded onto his 3DS. I felt full after supper. We all went to a store next door, which was quite interesting. After walking back to the station, we discovered that our train, originally due at 5:26 Central Time, was delayed because of a power line. While waiting, I drew some trains? No. While waiting, I saw some trains, drew Technoblade, which, here, I'll show you that drawing, Technoblade I made. Let's go. There. And I also wrote his very famous long quote from the Skyblock Experience video. Okay, and watched some more of the Super Show with David. The 2 notable trains we saw were the Carl Sandburg, which ran from Quincy to Chicago and through Galesburg, and a flatbed train carrying wind turbine blades. Meanwhile, one of the boys in our troop, who I'm just gonna call Justin, slept on his duffel bag. I don't know why I wrote that down. I guess it was notable to me. Eventually, we found out the Southwest Chief, our train, the number 3 train, was set to arrive around 8:10 CDT. During the wait, I decided to write this account, which I plan to continue every day of the trip. Another thing I forgot to mention. After the store, we walked around the Galesburg Railroad Museum and saw a stationary steam train with some cool old train cars that was built in 1930. I picked up a state rock for Illinois because I didn't have one already. While we walked around town, we saw the virtual Railfan livestream camera and the railroad crossing signal bell was going off even though there weren't trains there most of the time. Okay, something I just noticed here. I accidentally wrote the railroad crossing. I don't know why I wrote the twice, but whatever. Where was I? Okay. Drinking the Pepsi really fast before leaving the restaurant didn't make me feel so good, but as of writing this, I've worked it off and gotten over it. Galesburg is a pretty neat looking city. It has quite a bit of history and is visually appealing. I texted one of my friends to see how she was doing, and she was at Niagara Falls in Canada, which I said was awesome. As we watched the California Zephyr arrive and depart, I talked to my dad, who reassured me that everything would be alright. Because, for context, I was somewhat unreasonably nervous about this trip. Quote, if it was really that deadly, they, scouting, wouldn't let us go on the trip, he said. We also learned that our train would arrive even later at 8:32 CDT. We figured that out about an hour ago, said one of the scouts in our troop. I'll put his name here later if I remember. I did not remember, so I did not put his name there. That might have been nice to know earlier, but whatever. I also made a YouTube community post this morning saying that I would be going to New Mexico and that I'd make some kind of video about it when I returned home, which will be June 26, 2023. I did not make this video. Moving on. Still slightly nervous, wearing my Scout Class B shirt, khaki shorts, and Geography Now sweatshirt, I prepared myself for the biggest trip of my life so far. I don't know why I specified what I was wearing. I guess it was just for dramatic effect, but whatever. Around 8:30, ready or not, we loaded our bags, boarded the train, and started on our way. We were on the second floor of a coach car, and I sat next to David. We ate some Oreos, and David took a video of us leaving and of us in our seat. For some reason, shortly into our trip, the train stopped and we were confused. A guy in charge said there were some signal issues, according to my dad. My dad wasn't saying that there were signal issues. My dad was saying that there was a guy that said there were signal issues. Just in case any of you were confused by that line. Finally, the train started back up, which was a relief. Currently, the next stop is Fort Madison, Iowa, just across the Mississippi River. We have to wait for a favorable signal while on a slightly banked curve to be able to go again. Once we got to Kansas City, we'll have to move to the last coach car in the train, quote, because reasons, according to my dad. While we were waiting, I showed David some of my Sandbox drawings. Sandbox is a drawing app, by the way. Eventually, we started moving again, around 9:26 p.m. I swear, some of my writing is so hard to read, especially the parts where I'm really tired. My dad also showed me pictures of my older cousin's open house. Then I watched some more Super Show with David. The ride's a little bumpy, so please excuse some of the sloppy handwriting. Oh, okay, so I see I wrote an excuse in here for my sloppy handwriting, which I suppose is understandable, but alright. Moving on. The episode we were watching, David put in reverse, which is kinda funny. Then we played it forward. Also, the Oreos were double stuff. Then David and I played Mario Kart DS together. Currently, we're going over the Mississippi River. I used a lot of incomplete sentences in this in this journal, mostly because I didn't really care about being grammatically correct for most of the time. We are now in Iowa, Fort Madison to be specific. Now we're stopped. Now we're moving again. David and I talked about going to the observation lounge, but by the time we considered going, the train was moving again and people started to fall asleep. Also, the ride is still quite wobbly, so that was a potential impediment. Now I can't tell if we're still in Iowa or have crossed into Missouri. However you go about it, Iowa, Missouri, and Kansas are pretty flat, so I don't foresee any elevation issues. People moving back and forth between the cars and causing the doors to constantly open and shut is kinda annoying, but I guess I can get over it eventually. I did not get over it, and it still annoys me. Not really, but it was definitely annoying during the time, because we were sitting in the train cars, and we were trying to go to sleep, and we would just hear the doors would keep opening and closing, people would keep moving. It's like, stay in your seat, stop moving between the train cars, people are trying to sleep here. But I digress. Okay, I bet by the time we're headed home, I won't even care about it. It's kinda true. I put my DS away and prepared to start getting sleep. David started listening to Prisen Colin Sinine Chuzal, which is the name of a song written by an Italian guy named Adriano Celentano. And it's literally a bunch of nonsense words. Why did he make that song? I don't know, I guess he thought it was funny. We keep getting passed by other trains. David and I listened to a Weird Al song called Albuquerque. Quote, "It's so random and funny, I love it," I said afterwards. I don't have much else to write about today, so this will probably continue when we reach Kansas City. Until then, good night. That was my that was my little sign-off that I did that I thought was cool at the time, but whatever. At/around 11:24 p.m., we briefly stopped in La Plata, Missouri. That last line, the at around 11:24 p.m., around that time it was kind of hard for me to see what I was writing, so it's very faded and a bit chicken scratch-esque in terms of how neat that writing is, but whatever, you get the point. Alright, so that concludes June 11th, 2023 of the Philmont Experience. That's what I'm calling this story. The story is called The Philmont Experience. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and if you want to hear more of this story, please subscribe and like the video, and maybe leave a comment. That's all, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.